cemetery and then the pool just on our right. There is a legend in Jerusalem about warriors who fought the enemy and defended the city fiercely, but eventually they were killed and the enemy gathered their bodies into a cave. The next morning, when the enemy wanted to take those bodies and just throw them out of the cave, a lion stood at the entrance of the cave and roared, and the enemy said, okay, I'm not gonna mess with the lion. We're gonna go back and just leave these bodies of the defenders of Jerusalem and not touch them. Who were these defenders? Depends who you ask. It probably starts with a Christian 7th century tradition about the Persian conquest at 614 by Khosrow II. Another version we have a little later. We also have a Muslim story, which quite in the same lines. And later on, we have a Jewish legend that speaks of the Maccabees, of the Hasmoneans in the 2nd century BC, and the Greeks that were trying to gather their bodies and the lion that defended them.
Dead bodies, yani?
Yeah.
And who were the enemies?
That depends which
Which
religion
period?
you take. Okay, whether it's the Persians and Christian bodies, whether it's the Greeks and Jewish bodies, whether it's the Crusaders and the Muslim defenders. But anyway, we have this set of caves, and in the 1950s, early 50s, the state of Israel, under the general manager of the Ministry of Religion, his name was Kahana, Shmuel Zangbil Kahana. And one of the main problems of the state of Israel in the 1950s and 60s, all the traditional, most important holy sites are under the hands of the Kingdom of Jordan. The tomb of Rachel near Bethlehem, the Patriarch's cave in Hebron, and of course the Western Wall in the Old City, all under Jordan. So what he does is actually develop something that people could still make pilgrimage to and feel the holiness, although they cannot be at the former holy sites. One of them, by the way, is Mount Zion, where people used to come on all kinds of processions and ceremonies. And another was he tried to develop the Cave of the Lion. So at first people bought that, but then some people said, okay, now where do you take these traditions from? And he started to feel that that's a little problematic. And then the chief rabbinate said, hey, we don't know any real ancient Jewish source who speaks of the cave. There were amazing plans. I've seen the program in the city archives. Okay, they wanted a huge cave with holes and a souvenir shop and toilets and a hole and people coming here and praying. It's a brilliant plan, but it never took off because it wasn't really based on real Jewish tradition. And of course, after 1967, the whole program was ditched, and we have since 1958, since the Israel was celebrating its 10th anniversary, we have the Gan Ha'atzmaut, the Independence Park, all around us. Everything.
58?
1958. Okay, when Israel was celebrating 10 years to the establishment of the state. This is why it's called. Yeah, this is when they started the park. There were a few things
58?
later on,
58.
but since 1958, and this is why it is called Independence Park.
10 years anniversary.
Now, everything under and around us, you see the tombs. It's a Muslim cemetery. As I said before, at least from the 11th century AD. Some say maybe even a bit before. But if you look how this go in the sun, sarcophagus, this sarcophagus is quite different than the others.
Yeah.
This is not a Muslim tomb.
It's a Roman one.
Sarcophagus.
Right?
It's a sarcophagus, but what this architecture reminds us of, this is Gothic architecture. That means that this is a crusader, exactly. Okay, 12th or maybe 13th, early 13th century, which is quite weird in a Muslim cemetery.
Why they kept it here?
So
We don't know.
A crusader too?
This is a Crusader tomb.
Yes.
By the way, I took part. We now have the Tolerance Museum, which is also built on an area that used to be full of graves. I'm an archaeologist. I was here on the first excavation season. We found hundreds of Muslim tombs and a couple of Crusaders. How do you tell if the buried skeleton is Muslim or Christian?
He's faced to the north, something like this?
Crusaders lie on their back with their hands crossed across the chest. Muslim burials are on the side
On the side, huh?
and the head facing
Yes.
Mecca,
South.
the south. Okay, just like you pray towards Mecca, also when you die you're buried with your face towards the south. So this was, okay, even if you don't have artifacts with it, you know, crosses, crescents, other things, this is the way to tell. So we know we don't know how many, but there were a few graves at least, or a few Christians who were buried here as well. And most of the prominent Muslim families of Jerusalem have representatives buried here. The Nashashibis, the Husseinis, the Dajanis, and all. We have the tomb of Sheikh Ahmed Dajani from the 16th century, just about 100 meters above us. Okay, so that's a very important cemetery for all of Jerusalem. And naturally it is outside the walls because you don't bury inside. Why do I say it already? It plays a very important role when you speak of where was Jesus buried.
Holy Sepulchre Church, yes.
Okay, and we'll be there later on. We'll, in a moment, I just want to use the shade, we'll go and have a quick look on the